Dear reader, I'm Tony, and this is Book Text. I have for you a TBR of short classics that I want to read. I do love reading classics, but sometimes they can be a little intimidating, and so I wanted to collect some books that I could read quickly and maybe get some momentum going. But first, the word of the day today is bricky. Bricky. It is a Victorian slang meaning brave. So what makes you bricky? When are you most bricky? That's most British to say most, isn't it? So I have 5 books to talk about today that are shorter classics. They clock in, all of them, under 250 pages and most of them under 200 pages. So I find that when I can read a couple of books in a genre really quickly, I can get some momentum rolling, and then I want to keep reading even longer works. So that's why I am starting with some short classics to give myself some motivation and momentum. So I have first The Warden by Anthony Trollope. This is the first in his Barsetshire series. I really want to read through his Barsetshire Chronicles before I read Angela Thirkell's continuation / fanfic. I don't actually know how her series connects to this one, but I want to find out. So this is the first book. It is the story of a reverend who is falsely accused of financial misconduct, whatever that means, and how his community kind of navigates the fallout of that accusation. And I thought I would read for you the first line of each of these books. The Reverend Septimus Harding was, a few years since, a beneficed clergyman residing in the cathedral town of, let us call it, Barchester. It's kind of interesting. I love the kind of slow beginnings to Victorian novels. And I just noticed as I was skimming through these pages that the previous owner of this book, because of course I got it secondhand, only got to page 23, and then they left this sticky note in there. So hopefully I can get past page 23 and read the whole thing instead. My second pick is The Napoleon of Notting Hill by G.K. Chesterton. And this is a story about an ordinary man who becomes the King of England. And he decides to pull a hilarious prank because he has a good sense of humor. And he requires all the provosts to wear medieval robes, medieval costumes, basically. And one provost, who does not have a sense of humor, takes it seriously, and horrible things happen as a result. So it sounds a little funny, a little dark. I look forward to getting into this one. Another really short one. And I'll read also the first line of this. The human race, to which so many of my readers belong, has been playing at children's games from the beginning, and will probably do it till the end, which is a nuisance for the few people who grow up. Ouch, but you can feel the satire already dripping off of that one first line. Stultifying dullness, whimsical, vast discomfort. So I'm kind of looking forward to reading a bit of a funny, tongue-in-cheek book, even if it's a little bit political. Okay, then I have Wessex Tales by Thomas Hardy. This is a series of short stories. And I have read another collection of his short stories that includes one of these, and it was funny. It was pretty good. The other stories weren't as funny, but they were still really interesting to read. So I'm not expecting all the stories here to be funny, but I am expecting a little bit of the same of what I've read before from Thomas Hardy's short works. The one I read was called The Three Strangers, and it is a really funny story about a dark night where there are disguised criminals on the run, and a really funny wild goose chase happens. So the first line of The Three Strangers is, among the few features of agricultural England which retain an appearance but little modified by the lapse of centuries, may be reckoned the long grassy and furzy downs, combes, or Ulysses, as they are called according to their kind, that fill a large area of certain counties in the south and southwest. If any mark of human occupation is met with hereon, it usually takes the form of the solitary cottage of some shepherd. Hardy is so good at writing landscape descriptions. Like, you really feel like you're in that place, and I do enjoy a delicious setting. Next, I have The Inheritance by Louisa May Alcott. Of course, she's a famous 19th century woman writer, and this is her first book. She wrote it when she was 17. So I have read Little Women by her, and that's it. But I have a collection of her books that I'm trying to read through. I'm not quite following along. I know there's a Louisa May Alcott read along this year, and I'm not following along just yet. But I do want to read some of her writings. This is the story of Edith, who is an orphan who learns that she is inheriting a secret wealth, but she's afraid that it will ruin her relationships. So it sounds like it's been inspired by Gothic romance and sentimental novels of the time. I think this was published in 1849, and so it kind of, and even in the first line, you'll tell that it has some inspiration from novels that were published at the time. So here's the first line. In a green park where troops of bright-eyed deer lay sleeping under drooping trees, and a clear lake mirrored in its bosom the flowers that grew upon its edge, there stood Lord Hamilton's stately home, half castle and half mansion. Ooh. How embarrassing, my camera just ran out of space. As I was saying, my last pick is Excellent Women by Barbara Pym. This is a more modern classic. It was written in 1952, and it tells the story of an aging spinster who is stuck between two eras, one era of manners and repression, and the modern era, and how she kind of navigates that. I really enjoyed the blurb on the back by John Updike, and it says, "A startling reminder that solitude may be chosen." That's apt at a time of forced solitude, that we can actually choose solitude. So I'm really interested in getting to this one during the quarantine. The first line of this book is, "Ah, you ladies, always on the spot when there's something happening." Something's up there. I can't wait to dive into this. So those are my 5 classics that are short enough to not be intimidated by. What other suggestions for short classics do you have? Please leave them for me in the comments. And remember, there is always another book.